So President Biden announced that the U.S. is going to remove some of the restrictions that there have been in place since the Trump administration, stopping immigrants from coming across the border and applying for asylum here in the United States. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So we hear it all the time about the chaos at the border and how it's all Joe Biden's fault, right? Well, the reality is that immigration into the United States is way down. Where the United States typically has about 1 million people come into the country every year, last year we only had about 250,000, a 75% drop. Now, a big part of the reason for that drop, according to most experts, has been the relentless effort of the Trump administration to demonize immigrants and make their lives miserable here. Essentially, Donald Trump made it as difficult as possible for people to come here to the United States. And unfortunately, Joe Biden has basically continued that policy. That's why for all this talk about chaos at the border, there's a lot less immigration happening under President Biden's administration, even than there was early on in the Trump administration. And President Biden has been very aggressive about deporting immigrants. Now, the specific policy that we're talking about today is often referred to as Title 42, for a part of the federal code that deals with immigration and its relationship to the health outcomes of Americans. Based upon that statute, the Trump administration had taken the position, starting in 2020, that asylum seekers should no longer be allowed to come into the United States to apply for political asylum out of concern that they might also be bringing coronavirus in with them. That's the policy that President Biden has said is going to be discontinued as of May 23rd. Now, you have to understand, asylum seekers aren't just immigrants coming here because they want to find a better job or a better future, which should be good enough reason for them to come here in the first place, at least according to the Statue of Liberty. But asylum seekers are people who are fleeing for their lives, who literally are facing political or other kinds of persecution in their home countries, and are coming here to the United States to try to escape that. Frequently, when these people get sent back, they get jailed, tortured, or even killed. And under U.S. law, people in such circumstances are allowed to enter the country and essentially go to court to prove their case, that if we send them back, their lives will be in danger. And again, under U.S. law, where they are able to prove that their lives are in danger under such circumstances, they are allowed to stay or having been granted political asylum. Now, the exception to that rule that's become the basis for this policy falls in Title 42, where in the United States we've taken the position that these people fleeing for their lives can't come into the United States to request asylum. I mean, you have to understand, to request asylum, basically you need to show up at the border and surrender to a border agent and say, I want to request asylum. So that begs the question of, how are these people supposed to request asylum? And the truth of the matter is, it's basically been made very difficult. So this was not some effort to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus here in the United States. It was just another example of the Trump administration's attack on immigration, an attack that unfortunately has continued into this administration. Truth be told, the anti-immigration forces who were so in support of Donald Trump really don't have anything to complain about with Joe Biden, despite their claims to the contrary. Well, this move might be the sign of a shift that is finally starting to take place. I mean, one of the most outrageous policies of the Trump administration when it comes to immigration has been the reduction in refugees that we were accepting. Again, these are people who are fleeing for their lives, where if we don't take them here in the United States, they literally face death. This is reminiscent of what we did in World War II, when essentially German Jews came here seeking refuge, and we turned them down, sending back to Germany, where we know what happened to them. Well, the United States has basically taken the position under the Trump administration that we were going to dramatically reduce the number of refugees we take in. Now, to give President Biden credit, we took in a huge number of refugees from Afghanistan. And he just announced that we're going to take in another 100,000 refugees from Ukraine. Now, the truth of the matter is that announcement is more symbolic than anything, given the fact that over 3.5 million refugees have fled the war in Ukraine. But at least it's something. And perhaps it's a sign that finally this war on immigrants is going to come to an end. I mean, after all, the United States is a nation of immigrants. unless you come from Native American descent, pure Native American descent, then some of your ancestors came here, whether willingly or in chains. And the idea that now that we've got this world here, we're going to roll up the ladder behind us is really outrageous to me on a very fundamental level. But it also makes for bad policy. One of the revelations of the recent census is the fact that American population growth has essentially stalled. On the one hand, you have declining birth rates among native-born Americans, something that typically happens in most developed countries, by the way. Secondarily, though, you also have a reduction in births and an increase in deaths as a result of the coronavirus. And finally, what has allowed the United States to essentially escape from the demographic trap that has caused problems in Japan and France and other developed countries has been the fact that we have a large population of immigrants who come here and contribute, and who have been repeatedly shown to contribute more to our economy than they take out. So the fact that we've cut down on immigration so drastically actually points to a long-term demographic trend that should be of concern to all Americans. So I'm happy to say it looks like finally the Biden administration is maybe turning down on some of the anti-immigration policies that were implemented starting in the Trump administration. As Democrats, we're better than that. And I'm glad to see that President Biden on this issue is finally behaving in a way that represents our democratic values. Well, if you want to find out more about the long-term demographic and economic danger that the decline in immigration is causing for the United States, check out this video I did a little while ago. This is no joke. The United States needs immigration. And as I heard once stated on the radio, the primary competitive advantage that the United States has relative to other countries is our immigration. I'll see you in that video. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.